There are what we call Indriya Bhasya Vishayaha and Sakshi Bhasya. So all the objects, Shabda Sparsha, etc. are Indriya Bhasya. So seeing them is called Drashti here. But then there are so many other emotions like Sukha Dukkha, etc. They are not revealed by Indriya, but they are all revealed by in the light of Shastri. They are called, Shakshi is called Sakshi Bhasya. For that perhaps the word Vijñāti is used here. So Drashti is used for Sakshi Bhasya Vishaya and Vijñāti is used for these, Drashti is for Indriya Bhasya and Vijñāti is for Sakshi Bhasya. So, or whatever, Vijñāte hai, Buddhi Vritte hai. There is a Manovritti and Buddhi Vritti. So Manovritti is there for the Indriya Janya Vritti. Buddhi Vritti here is of the other kind of thoughts which are there, like the emotions are there, like different concepts are there. Nischaya Rupayaha Sakshanam. Or you can say, then there is also what they call the Anuvyavasaya. So Ghata Drishtavanaham. So I am the one who has seen the Ghata. So I am Ghata, this is Ghata. Then a Vyavasaya, Anuvyavasaya takes place. Vyavasaya takes place, I am Ghata, this is a pot. Then secondly I say, I am the knower of the pot. So even that vritti also can be said to be this Vijnanam. So Vijñātehe, Buddhi Vrittehe, Nischaya Rupayaha, Sakshanam, Tayana Visham Kuryaha. In short, but the Buddhi Vritti also, the Sakshi cannot be known because he is the illuminator of that Buddhi Vritti also. Iti Chaiva Mahadi. And therefore, to conclude the sentence here, says Ratnaprabha, Nanu avidyādinivartakatvena shastrasya pramāṇyepi nivrittehe āgantukatvāt mokshasya anityatvam svādhitina. So, says every on Tuesday the class is over at 8 o'clock, Other days it happens also that today is going on still. Anyway, but we should complete the last sentence. Nanu avidyādinivartakatvena Shastrasya Pramāṇyepi. Alright, you say that Shastra is Pramanam not by revealing Brahman but by removing ignorance of Brahman. Nivrittehe Agantukatvat. That Avidya Nivritti was not there so far and Avidya Nivritti has come. Avidya Nivritti or removal of ignorance is not there, therefore Brahman is unknown. The removal of ignorance takes place, so Brahman is known. So something has happened by which now Brahman is known. What has happened? Avidya Nivritti has happened, or removal of ignorance has happened. So removal of ignorance was not there so far, and removal of ignorance has occurred now. So removal of ignorance is something that is agantukam, something that has come. Which was not there, something that has come. So nivrittehe agantukatvat mokshasya anityatvam syat. Then moksha also becomes anitya because it is a moksha also is a product of avidya nivritti. And avidya nivritti that has taken place, so moksha also has taken place, and what has taken place is anitya. That is how agantukatvat janyatvat. Says Purnanandya, tathacha nivrittehe janyatvena. So avidya nivritti also is janya, has taken place. Tathacha nivrittehe janyatvena. Says nivritti or removal of ignorance has taken place. Tadrupa mokshasyavi janyatvat. And so also moksha, which is avidya nivritti. What is moksha? It's not a separate entity. Avidya nivritti or removal of darkness is light. It's not that light, darkness goes away and then light comes. Both are the one alone. That's why they say. So what is abhava? Adhisthānam itself is abhava. Either you can say adhisthānam is lokas of abhava or adhisthānam itself is abhava. And similarly also avidya nivritti itself is moksha. And therefore tadrupa mokshasyavi janyatvat. So avidya nivritti rupa mokshasyavi agantukatvat janyatvat anityatvam syadhi shankito abhipraya. So the Shankita says that even moksha which takes place also is anitya. Ataha, so Bhashyakara says Ataha avidya kalpita samsaritva nivartanena nitya mukta atma swarupa samarpanat na mokshasya अनित्यत्व दोषः अतः अविद्या कल्पित संसारित्व निवर्तनेन. It is samsaritva nivartanam, not even samsara nivartanam. What is nivartanam? Samsaritva nivartanam. Aham samsari. So Atma is qualified by samsaritvam. So samsaritva visishta Atma is what? Samsari. So samsaritva nivartanena. That notion that I am a samsari, that notion is removed by, so that notion is what? Avidya kalpita. Samsaritvam is avidya kalpitam. Even samsara also is avidya kalpita. But still that would not be a problem. But then there is a further kalpana of samsari. That deha is there, alright, but there is a dehi. Body is there, I am the embodied. That is a further kalpana, and that is really the samsara. Oh, that is really what creates shoka. You know, that other samsara may create a temporary obstacle, but this creates a real samsara, janma mrityu. Atah avidya kalpita samsaritva nivartanena nitya mukta atma swarupa samarpanat. In fact, moksha is nitya mukta atma swarupa. We would say that atma, which is adhisthana, is moksha. That's why it was earlier said that Brahma, moksha is not separate from Brahman, because, and otherwise moksha will not be nityam. If you create some kind of a distance between Brahma and moksha, then Brahma is nitya, alright, we will accept. How does a moksha is nitya? Brahman itself is moksha. Atma is nitya, so moksha also is nitya. And therefore, nitya mukta atma swarupa samarpanat. What is the nature of avidya nivritti or removal of ignorance? By removal of ignorance, Shastra presents Atma as nitya mukta, ever free, nitya nivritta. And so, na mokshasya anityatva doshaha. Moksha is nitya mukta atma swarupaha mokshaha. And therefore, na anityatva doshaha. In moksha, there is no anityatva dosha. Or ataha meaning tattvajnanat, avidya kalpita samsaritva nivartanena, says Atnava dhvamsasya nityatvat atma rupatvat cha na anityatva prasangaha ityartha. Dhvamsasya nityatvat paramate. Other people say that dhvamsa or destruction, even though it takes place, pot is there and you break the pot, so destruction of the pot has taken place, so destruction has taken place. Destruction is something that takes place, but then it never comes to an end. It is permanent. Pot once destroyed is destroyed, and therefore it is permanent. So they call dhvamsa as nityam. So pradhvamsa is called nitya. Anyway. Dhvamsasya iti janyatvevi nivritti rupa dhvamsasya ityartha. Dhvamsa is janya. It takes place and still it is nitya. Avidya, as it is to sit here for 1.5 hours is quite a job, you know. So avidyayaha kalpitatvat antyabhava vikarupa tan nivritteha vi kalpitatvena. I don't blame anybody. Adhisthana atma swarupatvat tan nivrittehe paramade dhvam swarupatvena nityatva prasangah tasman na niyoga paratvam vedantanam iti bhavah. Says Puna avidyayaha kalpitatvat. Avidya is something that is kalpana. Avidya itself is kalpana. Look at that. Kalpana is a product of avidya, then avidya is a great kalpana. Well, whose kalpana it is? Then again that kalpana goes on. But anyway, avidyayaha kalpitatvat antyabhava vikar rupatan nivrittehe api. If you say avidya is kalpana, then avidya means adhyasa there, you know. So avidyayaha kalpitatvat means what? Samsaritvasya kalpitatvat. Antyabhava, because samsaritva nivritti takes place. When it's avidya nivritti, samsaritva nivritti takes place, then avidya becomes samsaritva. Anyway, so these grey areas are there. So what is avidya is? So antyabhava vikar rupa tan nivrittehe api. So antyabhava vikar rupa tan nivrittehe api. So avidya nivritti. Dhvamsa is antyabhava vikara. So dhvamsa rupa nivritti. Avidya nivritti is avidya dhvamsa. When you say avidya is gone, means avidya is destroyed. Avidya is removed, means avidya is destroyed. Destruction is called dhvamsa. Dhvamsa is antyabhava, meaning the last bhava. Asti jayate vardhate vinashyati is dhvamsa. That's called antyabhava vikara. So that's the modification which is the sixth kind, last one. So avidya nivritti is of the nature of dhvamsa. Nivrittehepi kalpitatvena. If avidya is kalpita, avidya nivritti also is kalpita. And therefore, adhisthana atmasvarupatvat. Kalpana has its real nature and adhisthana. The true nature of the snake is only rope. Anything that is kalpitam, its true nature is adhisthana. So it is said, what is it? Adhisthana sheshohi nashaha kalpita vastunaha. Kalpita vastu gets destroyed, leaving adhisthana there. It completely gets destroyed like snake, leaving adhisthana of the rope there. And so if avidya is kalpita, avidya nivritti also is kalpita. And anything that is kalpita must have its true nature in the adhisthana. So avidya nivritti is nothing but atma. Sarva nivritti is nothing but rope. And so, as we said earlier, adhisthana atma swarupatvat avidya nivrittehe. Avidya nivritti also has its swarupa in adhisthana, which is atma, adhisthana rupa atma. Tan nivrittehe, and therefore atma is nitya, so moksha also is nitya. And tan nivrittehe paramate dhvamsa rupatvena nityatva prasanga, dhvamsa also is nitya, tasmanna niyoga paratvam vedantanam. Therefore, Vedanta, the moksha is not generated, and therefore is not kruti-janyam, and therefore there is no niyogatvam. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sūtra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina-murtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Atha Om Atha Om Atha Shastram Idantaya Vishayabhutam Brahma Pratipipadayishatade Kintarhe Pratyagatmatvena Avishayataya Pratipadayata Avidya Kalpitam Vedya Veditra Vedanadibhedam Apanayati Tatha cha Shastram Yasya Matam Tasya Matam Matam Yasya Navedasaha Avijñātam vijānatam Vijñātam avijānatam Nadrushter drushtaram pashyehe Navijñātehe Vijñātaram Vijāniyaha Iti ca evamādi Ataha avidya kalpita samsaritva nivartanena nityamukta atmasvarupa samarpanad namokshasya anityatva doshaha. So the question was raised at the end, Nanu avidyādi nivartakatvena shastrasya pramanyapi. It was shown how Shastra has its pramanyam, not so much by revealing Brahman, but by removing the ignorance. And that's all the Shastra has to do. In case of the knowledge of ordinary objects, the pramanam, the means of knowledge, has to do two things. Number one, to remove the ignorance or veil pertaining to that object, at the same time to reveal the object. Object of knowledge being jada or inert needs to be revealed, and therefore pramanam such as eyes or the mind has to serve these two purposes: to remove the veil of ignorance around that object as well as to reveal the object. Therefore pramanam, or the means of knowledge, reveals the objects. That's the reason why these means of knowledge such as eyes, ears are called devas, devatas, because they are shining ones, because they reveal the objects. However, the Shastra, is it of that nature that it reveals Brahman? The answer is no. In case of Brahman, these two functions do not have to be performed. Yes, the first function, namely removal of ignorance, has to be done. But revealing Brahman does not have to be done. Why is it so? Because Brahman is self-effulgent. And therefore, all that the Shastra does is, it removes ignorance. Ignorance which is in the form of notions. What are the notions? Vedya, Vedanam, Veditru. The known, the knower, the knowledge. So this duality is what? Avidya kalpita. And that alone is called samsaritvam. So samsaritvam is nothing but this duality, or the reality that is given to the duality. That is samsaritvam. And Shastra removes this notion, which is how we know avidya. That there is ignorance. How do we know that? Because of the duality. Which duality? The reality that is given to the duality. This is the nature of samsara. And therefore, all that the Shastra does is to reveal the true nature of things, as any pramanam does. Any means of knowledge reveals the thing as it is, and Shastra also, being the means of knowledge, merely reveals the nature of things. And it reveals that the duality that we encounter, the duality of the subject, object, and the transaction between them, that duality doesn't have absolute reality. Since we perceive it, it is there, and it does have some kind of a reality, but that it doesn't have absolute reality. That all these three, this knower, known and knowing, all these three spring from one reality alone, and that is the ultimate reality, which is Brahman. And thus, Shastra just reveals the nature of reality for the intellect, and that is how whatever notions are created in the mind on account of misapprehension or on account of the false perception or false interpretation of what we experience. What we experience is interpreted by the intellect, and that interpretation is false. So Shastra reveals that falsehood or the falsity of our interpretation, and that is how reveals for us or for the mind that true nature of the reality, and thus removes ignorance in the form of various notions. There are notions pertaining to the self, there are notions pertaining to the world, there are notions pertaining to God, there are notions pertaining to everything, and all these notions are removed by the Shastra by revealing the true nature of things. And therefore, avidya kalpita samsaritva nivartanena, merely by nivartanam, merely by removal of the samsaritvam, which is this duality, meaning the reality that is given to the duality, that is called samsaritvam, and by removal. So by elimination of that, by revealing that this is false, nityamukta atma swarupa samarpanat, that's all Shastra does is nityamukta atma samarpanam. It just presents before us the Atma who is ever free. Not that Shastra makes the Atma free, but Shastra reveals the Atma who is free. Why is it so? Because Atma or the self is taken to be bound. And therefore, Shastra reveals that it is not bound, it is ever free, and thus reveals the true nature of the self. Na mokshasya anityatva dosha. And therefore, if Atma were made free, or if moksha were different from Atma, the point here is that Atma itself is moksha. Because what is samsara? Samsara is kalpita, something that is imagined. And of the imagination or kalpana, the truth is the adhisthana, the substratum upon which the imagination is done. So non-dual truth, which is substratum, which alone is Atma or which is Brahman. So that alone is the truth of all the kalpana. Just as the rope is the truth of the snake, and so also the self that is non-dual is the truth of the reality of this karta, bhokta or the samsari. So what is the reality of the samsari? That nitya mukta atma, the self that is ever free. And therefore, that is the true nature. And that nature is ever there. That has not been acquired. Moksha is not agantuka. The question was, if you say that moksha or the freedom is attained as a result of removal of ignorance, then removal of ignorance is a happening, which means that moksha also has happened. Something has happened. But what has not happened is, Atma has not happened. Freedom has not happened. Freedom has been discovered. That's all it is. If freedom had happened, then it would be a happening. Then it would go away also, it would be anitya. But freedom has not happened. Freedom has been discovered. So freedom is the nature of the self, and that alone is moksha. So removal of ignorance, elimination of samsara is moksha. Elimination of samsara is nothing but elimination of ignorance. It was said yesterday also that if ignorance is kalpita, elimination of ignorance also is a kalpana. And of the kalpana, the truth always is what is substratum. And therefore, even the truth of this avidya nivaranam or avidya nivritti, the truth of that also is Atma, which alone is moksha. And therefore, even avidya nivritti you cannot call, its truth being moksha or Atma alone. Therefore, even with avidya nivritti, nothing has come inasmuch as it is a kalpana. If really that's what in Mandukya Karika says Gaudapadacharya. Prapancho yadi vidyeda nivartedana samshaya. If prapancha were really there, then certainly it would have to go. It is not there. If that snake were there, then the snake would have to go. When you come to know that this is rope, what has happened to the snake? Has the snake gone away? If the snake has gone away, then it is a phenomenon. In which case the snake can come back also. But snake has not gone away because it was not there in the first place. Therefore, going away of something that is a kalpana is not happening really. If that snake were real, then going away of the snake would also have been real. But since the snake is not real, snake itself is kalpana, going away of the snake also is kalpana. If avidya is kalpana, avidya nivritti also becomes kalpana. Or if snake is kalpana, even if you think, hey, snake has gone away, that also is kalpana. And that is not knowledge. To say that the snake has gone away is not knowledge. To know that the snake was not there is knowledge. So pertaining to rope, if you show the torchlight and then, hey, the snake has gone away, come. In that case, you have not understood the true nature of the thing. Because for you, the snake will come back also. You think that the snake was, and now it has gone away, so you'll be scared all the time that this is a place where snakes are, and therefore better not go there. The knowledge is that the snake was never there. So if the snake is a kalpana, removal or going of the snake also is kalpana, understand? And therefore we should know that snake has not gone away, snake was never there. So also samsaritva has not gone away. That kartrutva, bhoktrutva, dukkhitva, samsaritva has not gone away. If you think that now samsaritva has gone away and I am become free, then you have not understood it. Because the knowledge is, I ever was free and that samsaritva was a kalpana. That is the knowledge. So if samsaritva being dukkhi, is kalpana, then removal of the dukkha also is kalpana, meaning to know that it is not a removal in a primary sense. It is disappearance. They call it sublation, badha. So that snake has been sublated, resolved, if you want to use that word. Into what? Into the rope, because it was not there in the first place. Or when we say snake is resolved in the rope, meaning that's all there is. The true nature of the snake is the rope. And therefore, what is the truth of removal of the snake? Also rope. They say that if snake is a kalpana, then going away of the snake also is kalpana. If rope is the truth of the snake, the truth of this going away of the snake also is rope. Inasmuch as going away or removal of the snake also is a kalpana. And of the kalpana, the truth is always the substratum. So existence of the snow becomes what? The substratum for going away of the snake. And therefore, the point that is made all along is that Atma and Moksha are not two separate things. Atma being Nitya Muktaha, that itself is Moksha, to know that Nitya Muktoham, not Muktoham, Nitya Muktoham. Now that I have become free, I ever was free. That is how we have known that the bondage was false. And therefore, na mokshasya anityatva dosha. Therefore, the moksha that we are talking does not suffer from this defect of being anitya or impermanent or being created. So we read in Purnanandya avidyayaha kalpitatvat antya bhava vikara rupa tan nivrittehepi. So there is avidya dhvamsa. Avidya removal means what? Destruction of avidya. What is dhvamsa? Antya bhava vikara. And so antya bhava vikara rupa means dhvamsa rupa tan nivrittehe. The nivritti of avidya is the dhvamsa of avidya. Nivritti means dhvamsa of avidya. Kalpitattva nivrittehe api kalpitatvena. Since avidya was a kalpana, avidya dhvamsa also is a kalpana. Just as you said, the snake is a kalpana, the removal of destruction of snake also is a kalpana. Adhishthānātma swarupatvat. And what is the nature of a kalpana? The nature of kalpana is adhishthana. Adhishthānātma swarupatvat. Adhishthana itself is the Atma. Or Atma, which is adhishthana in the case of vidya nivritti. Tan nivrittehe adhishthānātma swarupatvat. Then the nivritti also has its swarupa in Atma, that is adhishthānam. That's one. Or paramate dhvamsarupatvena cha nityatva prasanghavan chakara added there. So paramate, so nivrittehe, put a comma there, and paramate dhvamsarupatvena cha nityatva prasangaha. Secondly also, according to the Nayayikas, the dhvamsa is nitya. Even though dhvamsa is created, destruction is created, but then it ever remains, and therefore dhvamsa is nitya. So we say that if avidya is destroyed, according to you, dhvamsa being nitya, avidya dhvamsa also is nitya. That is according to you. And according to us, avidya being kalpana, avidya nivritti also is kalpana, and of the kalpana, the truth is only adhishthānam, and therefore, of the avidya nivritti also, truth is Atma, which is nitya, and therefore, there is no question of anityatva dosha. Tasmat na niyoga paratvam vedantanam iti bhavaha. And therefore, says tasmat. So thus, since this moksha is nitya, it is not janya, it is not something that is created. Na niyoga paratvam vedantanam. Upanishads do not have niyoga paratvam, meaning they do not reveal Brahman or Brahma Vidya. They do not reveal Brahma Vidya as something to be done, or they do not reveal Brahma Vidya as a karma. If Brahma Vidya were karma, then niyoga or instruction or injunction would have been there. Since Brahma Vidya is not a karma, injunction is not there. And therefore, Brahman is not presented by Vedanta as an object of karma such as upasana. Brahman is presented for the sake of Brahman and not for the sake of meditation. This is the idea. Okay, this is the occasion to clear up any kind of question that may be there pertaining to moksha. And therefore, again, these different questions are taken up here. Says Purnanandya, Nanu moksha kriyaphalam bhavitumarhati. Says Purnanandya, moksha kriyaphalam bhavitumarhati. That moksha should be a kriyaphalam. Why is it so? Utpatyādi anyatamatvat. So kriya has these four kinds of things: utpatti, apti, vikruti and samskruti, which will be discussed. So let us say that moksha belongs to one of these categories, that it is either created or it is reached or it is a modification or it is a result of purification. Let us say that the moksha is a result of a process of creation or result of the process of achievement or result of process of modification or result of the process of purification. Let us say moksha is like that. That means it is karma phala, and therefore it is product of karma, and therefore kriya moksha kriya phalam bhavitum arhati. Utpatyadi anyatamavatvat. It is one of these two. It possesses one of these, utpatti, etc. Ghatadivat iti, like a pot. Pot is created, like the dhi, which is modified. And like this, like a pot or a copper pot, which is cleaned. In this manner, moksha also is one of these categories. Iti anumanena mokshasya upasana ajanyatvam should be. So anyway, upasana ajanyatvam aupacharikam syat. Don't say that moksha is not created by upasana, it is created by upasana. Tathacha utpatyadi anyatama rupa sadhya sambandhena mokshasya sadhyatvam. Therefore, this utpatti, apti, vikruti is something that is sadhya. Utpatti means creation has to be achieved. Attainment or reaching somewhere is to be done. Sadhya means that which is to be done. If you want to create something or make something, it is to be done. If you want to reach a place where you are not, it is something that is to be done. If you want to modify a given thing from one state to another, to be done. If you want to purify or clean something, then also that doing is involved. So where something is to be done, it is called sadhya. Then moksha is sadhya. In that case, mokshasya oh, then we are reading another line anyway here, okay. This answered. But the first line, mokshasya upasana ajanyatvam aupacharikam syadi ashankam pakshe hetu asiddhya pariharti. This ashanka, paksha is Brahma or moksha, and hetu is what? Utpatyadi anyatamavatva. That's a hetu. That moksha falls in one of the categories, utpadya, apya, vikarya or samskarya. That becomes a hetu. Moksha pakshe hetu asiddhya. By showing that in paksha, meaning in moksha, this utpadyatvam or apyatvam or vikaryatvam or samskaryatvam is not there. Hetu asiddhya pariharti. Therefore, this anumanam, this inference that moksha kriyaphalam bhavitum arhati, that moksha should be kriyaphala, that cannot be proved. Here bhashyam avatarati utpatti. This is how the Bhashyakara wants to present the next section, and that is what the Ratna Prabhakara also introduces a utpatti. Utpatti vikara apti samskara rupam chaturvidameva kriyaphalam. Say Ratna Prabha, we are on page 161, the last but one line. Utpatti vikara apti samskara rupam chaturvidameva kriyaphalam. Fourfold is the result of an action. Utpatti, creation, vikara, modification, apti, the attainment, and samskara, purification. So this is a fourfold result of an action. This is how they have analyzed it. Tad bhinnatvat mokshasya na upasana sadhyatvam. Tad bhinnatvat. Since moksha does not fall in any one of these categories, namely utpadya, vikarya, etc. Therefore, tad bhinnatvat mokshasya na upasana sadhyatvam. Therefore we say that moksha doesn't have, moksha is not upasana sadhya. So mokshasya na upasana sadhya means moksha na upasana sadhya. Moksha is not something to be accomplished as a result of upasana. This is what is the proposition. Iti aha yasyadu ityadina. With that in mind, Bhashyakara says, Yasya tu utpadyo mokshaha tasya manasam vachikam kaikam va karyam apekshate iti yuktam. That's good. Okay. Yasya tu utpadyo mokshaha. Yasya for one. Moksha utpadya. So those people who believe that moksha is utpadya, obviously. So those people who believe that moksha is something to be attained as a result of upasana, for them upasana creates, as we say, apurva. Apurva means some result, and that is how the moksha is created. So those people who say that Brahma is to be meditated upon, they look upon moksha as utpadya. It's something to be created. Tasya, for a person such as that, manasam vachikam kayakam va karyam apekshate. Certainly, if moksha is utpadya, then if it is to be created, then something must be done. Because what is not there at the moment has to come into existence, then something must be done. Namely, upasana must be done, worship must be done, action must be done. So, manasam. What is manasam karma? Manasam is upasana dhyana rupam. So either meditation must be there, or vachikam, some kind of utterance must be there, or kayikam, agnishtoma rupam. So either agnishtoma or upasana, such karma must be done. Karyam apekshade, iti yuktam. It's only proper that if moksha is something which is not there, and if it is to be created, then one or more of these actions will be required. Alright, now see the last line on page 161 of Purnananda. Nahi mokshasya utpatyadikam evasti. We say that moksha is not utpadya, etc. Yen utpatyadehe kriyajanyatvat tadvara kriyajanyatvam mokshasya syad. Yes, utpatyadi is kriyajanyam, created of kriya, as a result of kriya. If moksha was in one of the categories, moksha also would fall in the category of that which is generated by, result created by kriya. Tathacha utpatyadi anyatama rupa sadhya sambandhena mokshasya sadhyatma vidhi yat purupakshino matam. Purupakshi wanted to say that moksha is connected to one of these kriyas such as creation, attainment, etc. And therefore moksha also is something to be attained. Tad asangatam, that opinion is asangatam because moksha does not fall in the category of that which is created, attained, etc. It is Siddhanta Samudaya Granthartha. The whole Grantha of 6 pages, or 5 pages, has this particular aspect. The whole Grantha of next 5 pages has only this one. That since moksha is not utpadya, or apya, or vikarya, or samskarya, therefore it is not a kriya phala, and therefore it is not connected to the kriya, and therefore it is not connected with an injunction. What is utpatti? Utpatti samagri avyavahita uttarakshana sambandha ityartha. Utpatti means creation. When all the samagri, all the accessories are there, then what is the next moment what is created? When the samagri is there, then utpatti must take place. Meaning when the karanam is there, karya must take place. Karanam may have various things required. So for creation of a pot, not only the clay is required, not only a potter's wheel is required, not only a pot maker is required, not only water and all other accessories are required, but action also is required. So all these things make up what we call karanam. And when all the samagri or the accessories are there, next moment the pot is created. So also for creation of a crop, for example, you require the seeds and you require the plowing and you require all kinds of things. That all fall in the category of karya, the rains and whatever. And the time also, time for it to grow. So germinate and whatever. When that all that samagri is supplied, then the karya or the utpatti must take place. So that's the idea. Samagri avyavahita. Avyavahita means without any intervention. Uttarakshana, the immediate next moment, what happens is called utpattihi. Aptihi sanyogadurupa praptihi ityartha. What is apti? Attainment is what? Sanyoga. That at the moment you are separated and then you are associated. At the moment there is separation and then there is joining. Disassociation and association. This is called apti or attainment. So Ratnavrakara said, Yasyatu ityadina tasmad jnanamekam muktva iti antena granthena. That's on page 166. Jnanamekam muktva, that is up to on page 166. For all these 5 pages, this one point is made that moksha is not utpadya, moksha is not karmaphalam. That's all. So Ratnavara says, Tatha utpadyatva vad vikaryatvecha apekshati yuktamidi anvaya. Okay. Then Vashyakara continues on page 162. Tatha vikaryatvecha tayoho pakshayoho mokshasya dhruvam anityatvam nahi dadhyadi vikaryam उत्पाद्यं वा घटादि नित्यं दृष्टं लोके. Simple. If the moksha or anything is to be created, then some karma, either mental or oral or physical action will be required. Tatha vikaryatvecha apekshate. Manasam, vachikam, kayakam karma apekshate. Vikaryam. If something is to be modified, then also some action is going to be required. Depends on the kind of vikara. Sometimes you do something in the mind and something happens outside, So you do some sankalpa and then something happens outside. So that also mental action. Sometimes you say things and happen. Vachikam karma. Sometimes you do things and things are modified. And so kayikam karma. So for utpatti, for vikara, any of these karmas may be there. So tatha vikaryatvecha karma apekshate iti yuktam iti anvaya. Tayoho pakshayoho dushayati. Dushayati means shows. So bhashya utpadyeti utpattiman ityartha. Manasam upasana dhyana rupam va kayikam agnishtomadi rupam karya karma ityartha. Tayoho pakshayoho iti mokshasya utpadyatvam kaschiditi. Kaschid vikaryatvam tayoho pakshayoho. Somebody says that moksha is utpadya, created. Somebody says moksha is vikarya, to be modified. Of these two, tayoho pakshayoho mokshasya dhruvamanityattvam. If anybody thinks that moksha is created or moksha is a result of modification or moksha is a result of creation, moksha will become dhruvamanityattvam. Definitely it will become impermanent. Explains how. Nahi dadhyadi vikaryam. Dadhyadi means the curd, etc. Which is vikaryam. So milk is modified into curd. Ghatadi utpadyam. And pot, etc. is something that is made. So two examples. Ghatadi vikaryam or dadhyadi vikaryam. Ghatadi utpadyam va nityam drishtam loke. We know that curd, which is a result of modification from milk, is not permanent. Because that which is a product or that which is attained as it is a modification of one thing will further get modified. It is the nature of curd to undergo modification without anybody else doing anything. You leave the milk to itself and it becomes curd, and leave the curd as it is and it will keep on getting modified and disintegrated, and therefore it cannot be permanent. Or a pot which is made, it is created as a result of an effort. So that clay to remain in a particular form, it is not just by accident. If you leave the clay as it is, it will remain as a lump. Or perhaps it will only become what? Like dirt. But you do something with the clay to form it in the form of a pot. So there are certain forces which keep that clay in that shape, by the way. So this is what you have to learn in physics or in mechanics. The certain forces are required. Then alone that clay can remain in a particular form, which is what we call pot. And when those forces are not there, then the pot will disintegrate without your doing anything. So whatever is it that binds the various particles of clay into a particular form, when that force, that binding force is not there, or when that binding force goes away, that pot will slowly fall down. Just as houses fall down. Things just disintegrate. Like the ground just sinks. Whatever kept that ground in the place, moment the water penetrates underneath, that support does not remain, the ground sinks. So anything that is held because of some other reason, moment that reason goes away, that thing doesn't remain in that position. We also sink sometimes. You sit on the couch or sit on the cot and you just sink. Why? Because whatever was holding you there, it is not there. So we must know that everything is in a state of support. Something is supporting everything that is created. So a pot is there because there are forces that support. Maybe in our lifetime those forces will remain and the pot will remain as a pot. But leave it for a few hundred years, it will just fall down. Leave anything for a length of time, it will disintegrate. This is the nature of things. So anything that is created, being a result of the modification or a result of various forces, must also perish. Anything that is modified from one state to another also must perish. So, Dadhyadi Vikaryam Utpadyam va Ghadadi Nahi Nityam Drishtam Loke. You never find it to be Nityam. Says Ratnavara, Sthitasya Avasthantaram Vikaraha. Sthitasya Avasthan, that's transformation from one state to another is avastha in the state. From a state of milk, another state is called vikara. Dushayaditi swamate mokshasya utpatyadi anangikarat na anityatva dosha pratyuta paramadeva tadangikarat anityatva doshadi dushayadi ityartha. Since we don't accept utpadya etc. moksha, there is no anityatvam in our paksha. You accept it, therefore your moksha itself will be anitya. This is how the dusha is there. Sthitasya nityatveena sthitasya ityartha. Ho. Sthitasya avasthantaram vikara. Nityatveena sthitasya, how can you say? Sthita means that which is in one state just transforms into another state. Then next one, continuing, the Ratnabhava. Nanu anityatva nirasaya kriya. Do not say that Atma gets modified or moksha gets modified in that sense. But nanu anityatva nirasaya, in order that the moksha is not anitya or impermanent, kriyaya sthitasyeva brahmanaha. So nityatvena sthita, Brahma is nityam. And you reach that Brahman. So Brahman does not, if you say that moksha is Brahma, then we say that Brahman is nityam and ever there. And you reach Brahman by a certain kriya. In that case, once you reach Brahman, then you are ever there, and that moksha is permanent. Why not put it this way? That is explained by Purnanandya nicely. Yatha Shaiva Vaishnavadi Tattanmate Nityatvena Sthitasya Kailasa Vaikunthadi Gramasya Aptihi Gaman Rupaya Kriya Bhavati Tathaiva. Just as in Shaiva Mata, going to Kailasa is moksha. Or according to Vaishnava Mata, going to Vaikuntha is moksha. Vaikuntha is nitya. That Vaikuntha is not created. Vaikuntha is ever there. Kailasa is ever there. Or whichever, Saketa or Goloka, depending upon the followers there. But whether it is Vaikuntha, Kailasa, Saketa, Goloka or eternal heaven, as somebody would say, all of these are eternal. Heaven is what? Heaven is eternal. That means that place or that abode which is presented before us is as something to be achieved is nitya. So nityatvena sthitasya, that Vaikuntha or Kailasa is ever there. And you reach there by a process of gati. So gama rupaya kriyaya bhavati. So kriya is the nature of reaching or achieving is there. Tathaeva anityatva nirasaya nityatvena sthitasya brahmanaha upasana rupa kriyaya aptihi astu ityartha. And similarly also nityatvena sthitasya Brahmana, so Brahma is there as ever obtaining, and by a process of upasana or something, you reach that Brahman. In which case, then you ever are in the abode of Brahman. Why not that way? So people do talk of reaching and going and merging, and still they talk of a permanent moksha. How do they say? So when Lord is only in a particular abode, like Kshisagar or Vaikuntha or Kailas or wherever, then going to that loka is moksha. And reaching that loka. You see, a Vedantin may say that Vaikuntha is nothing but Brahman. And therefore, reaching Brahman is nothing but knowing Brahman. Vaikuntha is nothing but your own self. And therefore, reaching Vaikuntha is reaching your own self. If you interpret that, then it's fine. Eternal heaven is in your own heart. If it says, then it's all right. But when you use the word eternal heaven in the sense of a abode or a place, then there is a question of reaching, because all those people, all those faiths, you might say, or denominations, all of them talk of reaching after death. For that you should do something during this life. And so, if you say that there is actual going involved there, then again that would be a difficult situation, this idea there. Says Puran, they continue, Nityatvena Sthitaseva Brahma Rupa Mokshasya Apti Rupa Sadhya Uparagena Sadhyatvam Prapti Karmata Cha Bhavet Tatha Cha Brahma Praptehe Upasana Janyatvad Tadvara Mokshasya Abhi Upasana Janyatvena Vedantanam Niyoga Paratvam Iti Shankitu Abhipraya. What the Shankitu says is Nityatvena Sthitaseva Brahma Rupa Mokshasya. That Brahma, moksha of the nature of Brahman is ever there. Apti Rupa Sadhya Uparagena Sadhyatvam. So, when you say that moksha is something to be reached as a process of apti or as a process of going, then moksha sa sadhyatvam, then moksha becomes that which is to be accomplished or reached. Prapti karmatacha, and moksha becomes karma or an object of the act of reaching or act of going. Prapti karmatacha bhavet. Tathacha brahma praptehe. And so, in accordance with that, the attainment of Brahman is upasana janyatva. We say that Brahma prapti also is a result of upasana. Tadvara mokshasyabi. If moksha is that which is to be reached as a result of upasana, then mokshasyabi upasana janyatvena. Since moksha is janya or created as a result of upasana, Vedantanam niyoga paratvam, and therefore, since moksha is janya or attained as a result of the act of reaching, then you have to do something. If you do something, then niyoga or injunction would definitely be called for. This is what the Shankitru wants to say. And this is what Ratnavara also said, Nanu Anityatva Nirasaya Kriya Sthitaseva Brahmana Gramavat Apti Astu. That Brahman which is Nitya, attainment of Brahman, like reaching a village. So why not we reach Brahman? And that is how moksha is. Why not that way? Then Bhashyakara says, Nacha iti. Nacha apyatvenapi karyapeksha swatmasvarupatve sati anapyatva. Nacha apyatvenapi karyapeksha. Not that there is karyapeksha or an expectation of some kind of a karma, such as upasana in case of moksha, thinking that moksha is apya to be attained, because svatma swarupatve, what we call Brahman, is not elsewhere. If Brahman were in a certain abode, then definitely you have to reach Brahman. But svatmatvena, Brahman being the very self, anapyatvat, svatmatvena sati anapyatvat. Since Brahman is the very self, there is a question of apti or attainment does not arise. This word Ratnavara says Brahma, Jiva Abhinnam, Bhinnam Va, Jiva Bhinnam, Nava. So Jiva Abhinnam, Nava. Let us say, is Brahma same as Jiva or different from Jiva? Ubhayathapi Anapyatvat. If Brahman is same as Jiva or the Atma, there is no question of attainment. So said Swatma Rupatvat. So Swatma Surupatve Sati, since Brahman is the very self, there is no question of attainment there. Suppose you say Brahman is different from the self. Suppose you say Brahman is different from the self. Then also, by the very nature of Brahman, that's the next one. Says Bhashyakara, Swarupa Vyatiriktatvepi Brahmanaha na apyatvam sarvagatattvena nitya apta swarupatvad sarvena brahmanaha akashasya iva. Swarupa Vyatiriktatvepi. Suppose you imagine that Brahman is separate from you. Even then, Brahmanaha na apyatvam, even then Brahma is not something that is attained. Why is it so? Because of nature of Brahman. What is it? Sarvagatatvena. What is Brahma? Bruhatvat Brahma. So that which is big, and therefore that which is all pervasive alone can be called Brahman. So if you do not have any restriction pertaining to the growth of something, then it will provide everything. So Brahman is that which is all pervasive. So even if you consider that Brahman is separate from you, Brahman being all pervasive, you don't have to reach Akashasya. Even though space is separate from you, let us say. But do you have to reach the space? No, because space is all pervasive. So already there. And there also, if it is Brahman is like space, then space being all pervasive, just as you don't have to reach, Brahman all pervasive, therefore it doesn't have to reach, and therefore the kriya of apti or reaching also is not applicable in the case of Brahman, even if you imagine Brahman to be separate from you. So if you know Brahman to be the self, there is no question of reaching. Even if Brahman is taken to be separate from you, since Brahman is all pervasive like space, therefore there is no question of reaching. Nityapta Surupatvat. It is something that is ever attained on account of being all pervasive. Sarvena means Sarvastuna. It is already attained by everything. Sarvena Nityapta Surupatvat. So it is attained by everyone already. Therefore also there is no question of reaching there. Says Punanya, Jivasya Brahma Prapti Yatra Tayoho Abhede Surupasya Nityatvam Aptatvat Kriya Purvaka Apyatvat Anupattehe Kriya Apeksha Na Kriya Apeksha. So Jivasya Brahma Prapti Yatra Tayoho Abhede. If you say that, same thing, that Brahman and Jiva are in the same Abhede. Surupasya Nityam Aptatvat. Since Swarupam is that which is ever attained, Kriya Purvaka Apyatva Anupattehe, there is no question of attainment of the self. Bhedetu, if you take Brahman as separate from Jiva, Brahmanaha Sarvagatatvena Nityam Aptatvat, then also Brahman being all pervasive is ever attained. Kriya Purvaka Apyatva Anupattehe, again, the Apyatva, which is of the nature of Kriya, is not there. Na Kriya Apeksha Itya. Therefore, there is no apeksha or expectation of any karma, whether Brahman is the same as self or separate from it. Nanu abheda pakshe kathamapti bhedani tattvad aptehe. How did you come with the apti in case of abheda paksha? So, where did the question arise? Says, so, nacha apyatvena vikarya apeksha Swatma Surupatve Sadi Anapyatvat. How did this question of reaching Brahman arise in the case of when Brahman is a self? Aptihi bhed, so bhedani tattvad aptehe, because apti always is with the reference to bheda. Attainment or reaching is only when something is separate from you. So tatha ubhayatha apyatvat So the apyatvam, in case of both of them, where Brahma is jiva bhinnam, jiva abhinnam or bhinnam, both in both the cases apyatvam we are trying to show here. Anupatti iti chet na abhedetu aupacharikatvad iti bhavaha. So as we talk of apti of Brahman in case of even if Brahman is non-separate because aupacharikam. Like this chamikram, like the ornament in the neck, still it becomes an object of attainment because ignorance creates the sense of non-attainment, and therefore Brahman as though is attained because ignorance creates the sense of non-attainment. In that sense alone we say that even if Brahman is a self, it can have apyatvam only because of ignorance. So, upacharikam. Mokshasya utpadyatvam vikaryatvam apyatvam chana sambhavati iti pratipadakam bhashyam vyakhyaya. So moksha cannot be created, it cannot be reached, it cannot be the product of modification. So moksha cannot be that which is the product of modification or creation or reaching. Iti pratipadakam bhashyam vyakhyaya samskaryatvam na sambhavati. Now Vashyakara says moksha cannot have samskaryatvam, moksha cannot be a product of samskara. Iti pratipadakam bhashyam Vyakhyadi Yatha Vrihinam, it's so Vrihinam. The next Bhashya, the Ratnavrakara explains. That is in page 163. Says Ratnavara, Yatha Vrihinam Samskaritvena Prokshana Apeksha. So Vrihi means this rice, paddy, which is commonly used for yaga. And as we said earlier, when any material that is used for yaga, and particularly that which is offered to the devatas, must undergo some process of sanctification. So normally these priests do prokshanam. They take sprinkle water. So what water? That water which has been sanctified also. In the water you invoke different devatas and therefore the water is sanctified. You take that water and with the utterance of certain mantras, sprinkle that water upon the various materials, and that is how prokshanam or samskara takes place. That's how the materials are all sanctified. And then when you use that material for puja, or that material when it is offered as oblation, then alone it creates the apurva. Otherwise it may not. You see? Yatha vrihinam samskaratvena prokshana apeksha. Just as vrihi, rice, etc., there is an expectation that this rice, etc., must be sanctified by the act of sprinkling. Tatha mokshasya, is moksha therefore also similarly a product of some kind of a samskara? The answer is no. And for that there is a longer discourse than the earlier one. Says Vashyakara, Napi samskaryo moksha yena vyaparam apeksheta. See, that thing is very simple to understand. If something is to be reached, it is impermanent. Something is to be created, impermanent. If something is a product of modification, impermanent. This is easy to understand. But something is purified, then it remains what it is basically, and this purification takes place, impurity goes away, then why not it remain pure ever? So samskarya moksha can be nitya. That one may think that Atma needs to be purified. Atma is all right. As Jains and other people believe that Atma needs to be purified. Because the dirt or the malinata of anatma or karma or avidya has somehow stuck to Atma, and therefore you must purify. This is how they think. So anyway, therefore Bhashyakara says, Napi samskarya moksha. Moksha is not samskarya. It's not a product of Charles, I think. Okay, now continuing the Bhashya. Samskaro hi nama samskaryasya gunadhanena va syad doshapananena va. Okay. Nabi samskaryo moksha hai yena vyaparam apeksheta. Moksha is not samskarya, not a product of samskara or a product of purification. Yena vyaparam apeksheta. Had it been a product of some kind of a purification process or sanctification process, then vyapara. So some kind of a vyapara or activity would have been expected. Why is it so? Bhashyakara explains. Takes a long time here. Samskaro hi nama samskaryasya gunadhanena va syat. So samskaro hi gunadhanena va syat samskaryasya. Samskara means that which is to be cleaned or purified. So the samskara or purification of that which is to be purified would take place by gunadhanena, by imparting of certain guna. If a thing doesn't have certain guna or certain virtues, by imparting the virtues a thing is purified. Dosha apanayana va, or by removal of certain dosha or the defects, a thing is purified. So you can purify or sanctify a thing or do samskara in two ways. Samskara doesn't therefore mean only purification. Samskara meaning imparting certain impressions or creating a certain impression in that. So samskara therefore either you impart something. For example, guna adhanena, you declare that this person now is a brahmachari. So he undergoes the process of what we call the upanayana, and that's how yajna is given. And therefore, guna adhanam. So by imparting certain guna or certain characteristics to that person now, he is called a brahmachari. This is called samskara. Or also similarly, at every point the samskaras are like that. In some case, samskara also involves dosha apanayanam. Like jata karma, when a child is born, it is supposed to be impure because it comes from a very impure place. And therefore, samskaras are carried out to purify by removal of the dosha. So sometimes doshas may be some physical dirt, as we said. Says Ratna Brahma, gunadhanam vrihishu prokshanadina vastrado mala apanayah. So like a cloth has become dirty. So removal of the dirt will be called samskara of the cloth. Or in case of vrihi, etc., or in case of the grains that we use, let us say, for cooking, the removal of the stones and cleaning it would also be called samskara. Not only prokshanam or sprinkling sanctify that rice, etc., but even if you want to use that for cooking like vegetables, or like wheat, etc., or you want to use for cooking, then you have to clean the vegetables. So that is called dosha apanaya. And therefore, apanayanam of the dosha is done. Both are called samskara. In one case you add some spices, that also will be samskara perhaps, because seasoning. So rice or vegetable has a certain taste of its own, you add some spices, season them, that is also called samskara. Or this bhaji, etc., has a lot of sand in that, remove that sand, that also will be called samskara. Or the cucumber, remove the peel, that will be called samskara. So sometimes removal of something, which is what we call impurity, or imparting some seasoning, that is called process of samskara. And Bhashyakara wants to show that none of this kind of process is possible in case of Atma or Moksha. So here says Purnanandiya on the page 163, same page, Aham Brahmasmiti Brahma Upasanaya Brahma Rupe Mokshe Gunadhanakya Kasit Atishaya Rupa Samskara Janyate. Aham Brahmasmi, in that case, in that way you meditate. Aham Brahmasmi. It is Brahma Upasanaya. When Brahma is just meditated as Aham, Brahma Rupe Mokshe Gunadhanakya Kasit Atishaya Rupa Samskara Janyate. I don't know what is Gunadhanam there, but in Brahma, so by meditation as Aham Brahma, by that upasana, some kind of a apurva is generated. Kaschit Atishaya Rupa Samskara Janyate. Brahman is there all right, I guess, but then Brahman is not self. Therefore, you are not free. Therefore, by meditation upon Brahman, you create some kind of a Atishaya Rupa, some kind of a apurva, and that is how that Brahman gets samskritam. And that is how you become mukta, whatever it is, So Brahma Rupe Mokshe Gunadhanakya kaschit atishaya rupa samskara janyat. In moksha, some samskara is done. By guna, some apurva is created, that apurva is imparted to this moksha, and that is how samskaranam is done, and that's how moksha is the result of this samskara. Yatha vrihishu prokshanadina gunadhanakya samskara. So just as in the rice, by sprinkling this gunadhanam, you are imparting certain guna, imparting certain virtues to that, and that's how the samskara is done. Tathacha upasana rupa kriyajanyatvat samskarasya tadvara mokshasya kriyajanyatvena. So either you may say that as a result of upasana, moksha which was not there is created, or you may say that as a result of upasana, moksha which is there is somehow sanctified or purified or changed or modified by samskara, and that is how a person becomes mukta. That Brahma you are already, maybe. But then by this upasana, you become some guna is added and they're imparted, and that is how you become mukta. So that Brahman or Atma becomes mukta as a result of some process of purification or sanctification which takes place as a result of upasana. So upasana or act is supposed to bring about a real change in Atma. According to this, just as we said, the Jains really believe that karma sticks to Atma. And therefore they do all this penance and everything else to burn that dirt of karma. That's how Atma becomes purified. It has become very heavy because of that load of the karma. Then it becomes light and then it goes into its loka. So anyway, regardless of what their imagination is, the thing is, at least they do a lot of this upasana and tapasarya which blesses. However you do it, whether you think the milk will do this or that, milk when you take it will bless you anyway by giving you whatever it has to give. Similarly, when in your life there is this penance, that penance will bless you. So they get blessed all right. But we also want to do penance. Not that we dismiss penance, but we don't want to do penance to release the Atma, because already released. We want to do where samskara is required is in our mind, not on Atma. So we also talk of samskar, but where in the mind? Amanitvam, adambhitvam, etc. And then not on Atma. Because Atma which can catch the dirt, again may catch dirt, who knows, whatever, So tadvara mokshasya abhi kriyajanattvena vedantanam kriyaparatvam iti shankitam abhiprayah. Okay. Gunadhanam dosha apanayascha samskar shabdartha iti abhipretya samskaro ityadi bhashyam vyachaste gunadhanam, that these two are the samskar. Gunadhanam dosha apanayah. Vrihyadav gunadhan lakshana samskaro nama swargotpadaka rupa atishaya visheshaha. When you do that prokshan of the vrihi and then use it for the karma, then it becomes a means for creation of swarga. Otherwise, if you don't do the samskara, then that vrihi will not create the effect that it should create. Then Bhashyakara continues, Natavata gunadhanena sambhavati anadheya atishaya brahmaswarupatvat mokshasya napi doshapanayana nityashuddha brahmaswarupatvat mokshasya natavad gunadhanena sambhavati. Look, you cannot impart any guna or virtues to Brahman. Why is it so? Anadeya atishaya brahmaswarupatvat mokshasya. What is moksha? Moksha itself is Brahma. And what is Brahma? Anadeya atishaya. Where atishaya means some improvement or some excellence. Anadeya, that upon which no further excellence can be imparted. So adheya, anadheya. Adheya, when you impart something. Anadheya, that which is not available for imparting. Atishaya means excellence. So Brahman is that upon which no excellence can be imparted. Or by the same token, Brahman is that from which nothing can be reduced. So you cannot improve Brahman, nor can Brahman in any way be reduced or made less than what it is. Brahman being that. If you can add something, maybe you can take away also. If you can take away, you can add also. Nothing can be added, nor can anything be taken away from Brahman by way of samskara or anything. And therefore, moksha, which is nothing but Brahman, is not a product of samskara, because Brahma is not samskaryam. Brahma cannot be subjected to any kriya of samskara, and therefore moksha also is not samskariya. Then can you remove the napi dosha panayana? Nor can you remove any defect from Brahman, because it doesn't have any. Why? Nitya Shuddha Brahma Swarupatvat Mokshasya. Moksha again is Brahman, which is Nitya Shuddha, ever pure, and therefore there is no impurity to be removed, and it is so pure that it cannot be further purified. So Pavitranam Pavitramyo, that is even the purity of the pure, cannot be further purified. It is so pure that it is totally free from dirt, and therefore there is no dosha in there. So this is how it is. It is so pure and sacred that there is no scope for further purification of sanctification. It is so pure and sacred that there is not even a touch of impurity, and therefore there is no question of removal of impurity. So Pavitranam Pavitramyo, Mangalanam cha Mangalam, Daivatam Devatanam cha. So it is purity of the pure, sanctity of the sacred, and therefore there is no further sanctity can be added, nor there is any need to remove any dirt, because there is no touch of any dirt there. Nitya Shuddha Brahma Swarupatvat Mokshasya. Nitya Shuddham, ever pure, meaning it was never impure. If Nitya, suppose it has become Shuddha now, suppose Brahman is something that has become pure now, or Moksha is something that has become Shuddha now, that means someday it was Ashuddha. So someday it had some association with dirt. This is Nitya Shuddha, means never did Brahman or Moksha had any association with any impurity, and therefore there is no question of removing impurity. And it is Shuddha, means so pure that it is Niratishayam Shuddham, and therefore there is no question of further purifying it. And therefore the samskara of the nature of gunadhanam or dosha apanayanam cannot be applicable to moksha, which is Brahma. Okay. Alright, I think we'll postpone it for the next session, because it would take some time to take this discussion. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sūtra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmevi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Atha Om Atha Om Atha Samanvayat Napi samskaryo moksha Yena vyaparam apeksheta samskaro hi nama samskaryasya gunadhanena va syad doshapanayana va natavata gunadhanena sambhavati anadheyatisya brahmasvarupatva mokshasya napi doshapanayena nitya shuddha brahma swarupatvat mokshasya napi samskaryo moksha. Moksha na apya na vikarya na utpadya napi samskarya. Moksha is not something that is samskarya. Samskarya means that which is purified. That's called samskara. Samskara is act of purification. But then samskarya, that which is purified. Says, napi samskaryo moksha. Moksha is not something which is subject to purification. Moksha is not something that is subject to creation, subject to modification, subject to attainment or reaching, nor is it subject to purification. Yena vyaparam apeksheta. If moksha were that which was subject to some kind of purification, then some vyapara, some kind of an activity would have a scope in the realm of moksha. Samskaro hi nama samskaryasya gunadhanena vasyat. What is meant by samskara? Samskaryasya. So that which is to be purified, gunadhan, or that for which samskara is to be done, gunadhanena va, by imparting certain gunas or certain virtues, doshapanayena vasyat, or by removing some dosha or removing certain defects. So if in an object we can impart certain virtues or qualities, or we can eliminate or remove certain defects, then we call that particular kriya or act as samskara. Is that possible in case of moksha? Not because moksha is Brahma. The whole idea is moksha itself is Brahma. Moksha is not separate from Brahma. Otherwise you will wonder what is this moksha is samskarya. In fact, Brahma is not samskaryam. But since moksha itself is Brahman, that is what has been said, therefore moksha also is not samskarya. You can know the freedom is not utpadya samskarya. Brahman is not utpadyam samskarya or Atma. But then freedom also is the nature of Atma, because bondage is something that is kalpitam. Bondage is kalpana, is mithya jnanam, is Brahma or a delusion, and the true nature of kalpana is only adhishthanam. So Brahman being adhishthanam is the true nature of even bondage. So therefore, what is moksha? Moksha also, which is removal of bondage, removal of ignorance, and removal of ignorance also being kalpita. Therefore, moksha is nothing but Brahman. This is the technical point that has been made. Anadheyatisha Brahma Swarupatvat Mokshasya. Since moksha is of the nature of Brahman, which anadhe atisha, on which atisha means no excellence can be imparted. So moksha is nothing but Brahman, which is such that no further excellence can be imparted, because it is the most excellent. So Brahman being the most excellent, therefore no further excellence or guna or virtue can be imparted to Brahman. Therefore samskara of the nature of gunadhanam or imparting a virtue is not possible in case of moksha. Napi doshapanayena, nor is that in the scope of removal of dosha in case of moksha, because again moksha is Brahman, which is nitya shuddha brahma swarupatvat mokshasya. Moksha is very Brahman, which is nitya shuddha, which is ever pure, and therefore there is no question of the removal of any impurity or defect. And therefore either the samskar of the nature of gunadhanam or doshapanayam, none of them is possible in case of Brahman, and therefore not in case of, possible in case of moksha. Napi samskaryo moksha. Okay. Now continuing. Shankade. Now another question is asked here. Swatma dharma ityadina. Says Bhashya, Swatma dharma eva san tiro bhuto moksha kriyaya atmani samskriyamane amivyajyate yatha adarshe nigarshana kriyaya samskriyamane bhasvaratvam dharma iti che. Okay, another very interesting point. Says you are right that moksha is Brahman. Brahman itself is moksha. And also we accept that Brahman is ever pure, and therefore moksha also is ever pure. Okay. And still it can happen that even if something that is ever pure, that purity can also be veiled or concealed. Svatma dharma eva san tirobhutaha moksha. Moksha is the svatma dharma, is the nature of Atma. It is true. Tirobhutaha, but somehow it is covered. It is veiled. Tirobhutaha. So, tirobhutaha moksha, that moksha which is of the nature of the self, but somehow it is still veiled or covered from our sight or from our knowledge. So, kriyaya atmani samskriyamane abhividyate. We say that upon Atma, when some kind of a kriya is done. Now, moksha is not samskara, but samskara in a different way. That upon the Atma or the self, suppose you do some kind of a kriya, by which whatever it is that veils the true nature of Atma, that veil gets removed, and moksha, which is the true nature of Atma, becomes manifest. So now, we do not say that moksha is something to be created as a result of action. We say that moksha is something to be manifested as a result of action. So manifestation is that which is already existent, just comes to our sight. They say what is vidyamanam becomes vartamanam, meaning what is there just becomes manifest. That's called manifestation. So something is there, all right. That's exactly what Vedantins say, of course. That moksha is already there, just becomes evident, not even manifest. But here, it is not manifest, it is really veiled or covered. And that you remove the covering, and what is there behind the covering becomes unveiled or manifest. And the illustration is given, yatha adarsha samskriyamane. Adarsha means a mirror. So just as nigarshana kriya samskriyamane, upon the mirror there is a layer of dirt, and therefore the mirror is not to reflect our face. Then what do? Nigarshana kriya, by the act of rubbing or scrubbing, samskriyamane. So this is samskara. It is not that we are really imparting any quality to mirror, nor are we removing an inherent dosha or defect in the mirror. See, this is an interesting difference here. That when you remove the dust from the mirror, you are not really imparting any quality gunadhanam, nor are you removing an inherent defect in the mirror, like a wrinkle, etc. But what veils the true nature of the mirror, that veil is just removed, and that removal of the dirt or removal of that veiling element, aspect, alone is called samskara. Some kriya is involved. So, samskara is, here in this case, some kriya is involved by which the true nature of the mirror is just made manifest. Why not that way? Samskriyamane abhivyajyate. So, bhasvaratvam dharma. That bhasvaratvam, to shine or to reflect, is the nature of the mirror, and that the nature of the mirror to reflect becomes manifest by removal of the dust which was just veiling or stifling or blocking that nature of the mirror. So if you say that moksha is a dharma of Atma, we accept it. But it is true also that at the moment I don't experience that. At the moment I don't feel free. Even if moksha or the freedom is the nature of the self, or purity is the nature of self, that purity is not at the moment a matter of my experience. So what has happened to that purity or freedom of the Atma? It is somehow veiled from me. So there must be something really there which covers that nature of the Atma, and therefore Atma is to be uncovered. And that's the submarine philosophy. Something veils the Atma. When that is removed, then Atma surfaces, So whatever it is, that is different philosophies are there. So this is one of those philosophies. Or maybe you can use a different word for this philosophy. That Atma, which is the purity of the Atma, which is unmanifest, is to be made manifest by some kind of a nigar, some kind of a kriya. Says Ratnaprabha, Brahmatma Swarupa eva moksha. This moksha which is Brahmatma Swarupan. Brahma itself is Atma, and that itself is the true nature of moksha. That is the moksha which is the nature of Atma, which is Brahman. Anadi avidya mala avrutaha. True. What is the mala, or what is the impurity, what is the dirt that really veils the nature of Atma? Anadi avidya. Avidya or ignorance that is beginningless. That dirt of ignorance that is beginningless somehow veils the nature of Atma, which is moksha. Avrutasan upasanaya malenaste abhivyajyate. So, that upasana, by upasana, now the thing is, how do you remove the dirt of ignorance? By upasana, he says. Upasanaya malenaste. By upasana, this is exactly we said, that's what the Jains do. That they believe that Atma actually is covered by the dirt of karma. And therefore you must do upasana. Tapasya of different kinds to actually burn or remove the dirt, and the Atma becomes free. This is what they believe. So some kind similar belief is here that upasanaya malenaste. By the upasana, when that mala, all the dirt or impurity of ignorance is removed, abhivyajyate, moksha abhivyajyate. Moksha, which is of the nature of the self, becomes manifest. Iti atra drishtantaha. And for that, a drishtanta is given. Now when drishtanta is given, you must disprove that the drishtanta is not applicable, otherwise you will accept that argument. When inference is given to an illustration, drishtanta, then you have to show where in the drishtanta some kind of a defect is involved. If you don't show that, then you would accept that inference. So he gives drishtanta. Here, yatha adarshe nigarshana kriya samskrimane bhaswaratvam dharma iti ched. Samskara here, malanasha. In this case, it is not in terms of removal of an inherent defect, but then malanasha in terms of removal of that which veils its nature. Okay. Now the question is, Ratnaprabha continues, Kim atmani mala satyah kalpito va. This mala, or that veiling factor in the Atma, is it real or is it imaginary? Please tell us. Satyah mala kalpito va. Dvitiye jnanadevatan na kriyaya. If you say that this mala, which is ignorance, is kalpita, meaning is not real, understand? This is a very important point that the Vedantins always make, that even when we accept some kind of an existence of avidya or maya, it is, what is the status of the maya? Maya does not have the status of reality. That's the reason why, even though maya is accepted, it is not accepted as a second factor. This is very, very important, because this creates a lot of confusion, in the mind of people. The maya you are accepting, that means you are accepting under reality. We are not. We are accepting maya by the way, just in order to explain the experiences, etc. that we have. So avidya also is accepted. It doesn't have the reality. Brahman is real, avidya is not real. So avidya itself is mithya or kalpita. Mithya means Brahma, or which is not really there, which appears to be real. And therefore avidya is accepted as a mala, is not real mala, meaning that Brahman is not really veiled, that even veiling also is not being there and still appears to be there. So if you accept therefore that avidya or ignorance is kalpitam, meaning mithya, in that case mithya, which is Brahma or delusion, can only be removed by knowledge and by no other means. So that which is mithya the word mithya itself is used for that purpose. Mithya is what? Jnana nivartyam is mithya. What is mithya? That which can be removed or eliminated by knowledge. That's called mithya. So snake is called mithya. Why is it called mithya? Because snake is that which is destroyed by the knowledge of the rope. That's all. So that which is destroyed or eliminated by knowledge is called mithya. Take it this way. Ignorance is that which is destroyed by knowledge, so it is mithya. And everything that is product of ignorance also goes in the wake of removal of ignorance, therefore that is also mithya. So dvitiye jnanadeva tannashaha na kriyaya. If you say that this avidya, which is mala, is actually merely is kalpita, then jnanadeva nashaha. It can only be removed by knowledge and then na kriyaya, not by kriya. Because kriya itself is mithya. So mithya thing cannot remove mithya. It's like this, that upon your window pane glass, there is some dirt is there. And you take a piece of cloth which is even dirtier and then try to clean it, which is a standard thing that happens, and you wind up making it dirtier. That's you give this fellow some work. He doesn't do anything normally. So just to keep him busy, he says, I want to do something, all right. Clean that window. And by the time he's through in 1 hour, he has made it dirtier than before. Kam vadhari, that's what they do. So when they do something, in fact, they only increase the burden of work. So that's what happens.